Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. On today's episode of Red Alert, we are talking about the 2020 Democratic primaries, because things happen every day in that unfolding drama that are really just, in my opinion, sometimes beyond belief. Right now, I think this is probably one of the most significant developments of the campaign so far. What could possibly be a war started by by Elizabeth Warren against Bernie Sanders, a real war of words that has been coming on in really epidemic proportions, that has just suddenly popped out of nowhere, and it's going to be interesting to see where this thing goes. I think it's really going to be worth following. Alright, so let's get into it. Cut the music. Alright, let's talk about this. So, Elizabeth Warren, this is pretty much sort of fake beef with Bernie Sanders, and it really is a sign the primaries are heating up, because right now, Saagar Enjeti said this on The Hills Rising, like, this is the most easy-going primary. I think it's pretty much a undisputed fact that we have seen in a while. Like, you do not get more chill than this, because really the pervasive narrative has been, something I think is really stupid, is that there has been absolutely no pushback when it comes to any of the candidates, because it's going to hurt us against Trump. It's going to hurt us against Trump. We can't go negative. We can't say any bad word about one another in any way, shape, or form, because it's going to hurt us against Trump, which I just personally find to be complete and utter BS, because you need a competitive primary. You need a candidate. You need to have all the Democratic candidates fight in a big giant scrum. The weak ones to be sorted out, and the one with the best record, the one that the most people like, to stand up on top. Bernie Sanders was denied that chance in 2016. He would have beaten Trump. The primary was rigged against him. These are all, to my, the fact that he was rigged it's very, very clear. There's a bunch of evidence to support that. We don't know, obviously, if he would have beaten Trump, but all polling suggests that yes, he would have. Hillary Clinton obviously did not beat Trump, losing key states that Bernie Sanders won the Democratic primaries in handily. But yeah, you probably heard me and other Bernie supporters make this point before. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get a little bit more current. So these two presidential contenders, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they've had a bit of a dust-up right now that has pretty much, I think, gone on to a full-blown conflict at this point. The two Democratic presidential contenders are representing the party's left wing of the 2020 race. They found themselves at odds this weekend after Warren responded to a call script for volunteers that was reportedly issued by the Sanders campaign. The entire episode is really a lesson in the growing friction in the Democratic presidential primary, and a telling of how really off the chains things might get, especially when your campaign is sliding in the polls big time. So it all started with a report with Politico, a notoriously not friendly to Bernie outlet, calling him, saying, quote, "He may be cheap, but he's certainly not poor," with 3 houses stacked on his head in this graphics. It's like, really, if you want to talk about anti-Semitic tropes and dog whistling, like, that is something that you're going to have to really take the first look at. But anyway, so this report by Politico included written guidelines for Sanders volunteers calling potential voters who might support other candidates. In the script, Sanders volunteers are reportedly advised to characterize Warren supporters as highly educated and affluent. So, yeah, this is the incredibly... Are you ready? Get ready for this. Prepare yourself if you have not seen this yet. If you have seen this yet, if you're online all the time like me, you know where I am going. So, get ready, all right? I like Elizabeth Warren. Optional. The script begins. This is optional. Then you should say, I like Elizabeth Warren, but the next thing is optional, depending on your opinion. In fact, she's my second choice. Oh, my God. That must be the meanest thing anyone could possibly say about Elizabeth Warren. That's like, this is the worst. Like, like, this is devastating. Like, this is the worst attack anybody's levied on in the history of any primary campaign, when it's really just drawing just 2 perfectly clear and obvious distinctions in a primary, when people are running against each other trying to win in an election. Like everything he said here is about to say is empirically fact. saying, quote, people who support her are highly educated and more affluent people who are going to show up and vote Democrat no matter what. She's bringing no new bases to the Democratic Party, which by all polling counts is 100% true. 100% true. So, yeah, it's just like, again, it's just dramatic. Drama being poured out by the Sanders campaign. The meanest attack in the history of mean campaign attacks. Oh my God. Yeah, saying, quote, we need to turn out the disaffected working class voters if we're going to beat Trump. The script section on Warren concludes, which got a point. In a section apparently about status quo candidates, the document also mentions the lack of enthusiasm about former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign and the low support among young and African-American voters for Pete Buttigieg, former mayor of South Bend. So pretty much the top 4 contenders it approves here. So, according to Politico, the Sanders campaign, again, did not deny the script's authenticity, but the thing is, and I mean, there's many volunteers saying, and I read this on Newsflash yesterday, so we're kind of retreading old ground here if you've listened to Newsflash, but this is going to provide a little bit more on the way of detail's sake. But this guy comes out, he's a Bernie Sanders volunteer, and says this was a memo written by a volunteer, a random user who's only ever posted once before that document, posted that document in the Sanders volunteer Slack group. He posted that document, not a very frequent user. Moderator promptly removed it and stated, quote, that it was not a campaign source. So if that's true, and if he can prove it and post some screenshots of it, I think that would go a long way to disproving and saying that Elizabeth Warren is lying and overreacting here. But it's not like, again, it's not like there's 2 sides to this. Elizabeth Warren can be completely misrepresenting a story, and what the attacks here could be are empirically true, especially when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, who probably gets it the least in this Bernie Sanders volunteer script that is apparently so offensive. So her response is that this is Elizabeth Warren's response that we also played last night.
Reporting out from my colleague in Politico this morning about the Bernie Sanders campaign and the way that they are talking about you at the doors here in Iowa, basically saying that your voters are people who will vote Democrat anyway, that you don't bring new bases into the Democratic tent. Why is he wrong?
I was disappointed to hear that Bernie is sending his volunteers out to trash me. Bernie knows me and has known me for a long time. He knows who I am, where I come from, what I have worked on and fought for, and the coalition and grassroots movement we're trying to build.
Yeah, so this is the attack here. I was so disappointed, and this is another key point in this. I'm going to play this again. It's a little louder here, so get ready.
Coalition. It means building a grassroots movement with face-to-face conversations with people and door knocking. It means getting a positive message out to people. That's how we will beat Donald Trump. We cannot nominate someone who takes big chunks of the Democratic coalition for granted. We need someone who will bring our party together. We need someone who will excite every part of the Democratic Party, someone who will be there, someone that every Democrat can believe in. I hope Bernie reconsiders and turns his campaign in a different direction.
You say you need someone though who...
Yeah, so this is, again, the factionalism that was caused by the 2016 primary campaign that Bernie Sanders created here, is what she's saying. By extension, pretty much saying that Bernie Sanders gave us Trump. Like, does anyone aside from Hillary Clinton really believe that? Apparently Elizabeth Warren does. So this is a big quote. Democrats want to win in 2020. We all saw the impact of the factionalism in 2016, and we can't have a repeat of that. So pretty much saying the factionalism that was in place by having someone dare to challenge the queen of all queens in the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, that was what caused Donald Trump. Someone dared to challenge Hillary Clinton. Jesus Christ. Democrats need to unite our party, and that means pulling in all parts of the Democratic coalition. President Donald Trump, who BuzzFeed News reported last week was trying to fixate on Bernie Sanders, apparently caught news of the entire exchange, echoing Warren when he wrote on Twitter on Monday that Sanders volunteers were trashing Warren, questioning whether a feud was brewing or not. Warren's campaign manager, Roger Lau, also mentioned disappointment in 2016 factionalism in a fundraising email sent over the weekend with the subject line, quote, "What Bernie's campaign says about you." So pretty much fundraising off this stuff now. Again, hinting to Elizabeth Warren's affluent white base that was going to come out and vote Democrat no matter what, that Hillary Clinton was to blame here. That probably supported Hillary Clinton in the last election, that Bernie Sanders was to blame, probably something that they already believe anyway, affirming that, trashing Bernie more than Elizabeth Warren was ever trashed by Bernie in the first place, by stating pretty much empirical facts. Like you can't just be like, in a campaign, everyone's great, choose me. Like, that's not an effective way to campaign. Like, it's just not, doesn't work that way. Like, you will lose that way. Like, you got to draw some distinctions here. Anyway, so Julian Castro, a 2020 Democratic candidate, dropped out and immediately endorsed Warren. Also used similar framing to describe her campaign over the weekend, according to the New York Times, saying, quote, disappointed that Bernie would go negative on somebody that he's known for a long time and worked with, and whose character he must certainly know is good. Warren, again, leading into this with this campaign email from campaign manager Roger Lau with the subject, "What Bernie Sanders' campaign says about you." It's just, again, the whole fundraising and the hint to this white affluent base that this factionalism that Bernie Sanders caused, he's a tricky outsider. He wants to change things, and that could give us Donald Trump. You know Hillary Clinton. You guys like Hillary Clinton. She would have won if it hadn't been for that meddling Bernie Sanders causing this factionalism. Yeah, anyway, so what's curious about this unity candidate argument regarding questions about the wealthy supporters and Warren's movement, about how it squares with Warren's attacks on Buttigieg last month. On the December debate stage, as you may remember, Warren laid into Buttigieg over a fundraiser from billionaires in wine caves who hosted a fundraiser for the former mayor. As we all know, the wine cave situation. Speaking to reporters on Sunday, Sanders didn't take responsibility for the script, called the situation a media blow-up, and maintained that Warren is a very good friend. He said the candidates will continue to, quote, debate the issues. "We have hundreds of employees. Warren has hundreds of employees," Sanders said when questioned about the script's origins. "People sometimes say things they shouldn't. Have you ever heard me give, you have heard me give many speeches. Have I ever said one negative word about Elizabeth Warren?" The script itself had nothing bad to say about Warren or the highly educated, affluent people who are likely to support her, a trend that has again been documented across polls throughout the campaign. As Politico explained last July, Warren and Sanders' bases of support are somewhat distinct despite the relative political proximity. More highly educated voters were more likely to support Warren, while lower income voters with less education more often supported Sanders. Then that Washington Post attributed that, I think not totally incorrectly, to Warren's wonkish policy style. As 538 broke down in October, Warren's doing particularly well with white college-educated voters and starting to expand her base by making inroads with non-white voters without a college degree and more moderate voters. A poll later that month found her supporters that were most likely to be white, wealthy, and college-educated. So pretty much basically stating empirical facts. This raises several questions about this episode. Is it factionalism to express concerns about another candidate's potential to win it all in November? Is it okay to discuss another candidate's space at all, even with empirical data behind it? So this, again, reporting here from Teen Vogue on this, Lucy Diavolo. So what she has to say is, like, is it okay to discuss another candidate's space at all, even with empirical data behind it? Yes, that's how you win primaries. People are going to have to do it at some point. People have been discussing Bernie Sanders' base, calling the Bernie bros, and no one was accusing them of factionalism because they are the media. Like, they're allowed to do that. Given the accuracy and the mild tone of the script's comments about Sanders and the presidential candidates have, given the accuracy and mild tone of the script's comments about Warren and the fact that presidential candidates have always had to find ways to differentiate themselves from their competition